The one that you were just touching.
This?
Yeah. Or twist.
Twist it.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Too bad we don't have a Jamie.
I know. Who could be our Jamie?
So it's recording already. I wanted to start off just talking about Jason and the fact that he let us use his wonderful podcast studio.
Sure.
So this podcast studio is called the Radio Room, and it's connected to Squatch Frontier Fitness, and you can pay for a membership and use the Radio Room to record your podcasts with excellent video quality and audio quality. And then the gym is an awesome community-based gym. You can also get a membership there. We have ice bath, sauna. It's more of a functional fitness type of gym, and it's really community-based, so there's tons of people there that are willing to talk to you, which we just witnessed. We met Adam.
Definitely.
And this is Maggie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maggie. I just met Shar very recently, but I am completing my last few weeks of my master's degree in dietetics. So like Shar, I will also be a dietitian once I sit for the exam. I'm a nutrition professional, so yeah.
When's your exam?
So I cannot schedule my exam until I officially graduate, but my goal is to take it by June.
Okay, yeah.
So it's coming up quick.
I think I actually officially graduate in December. And then, of course, I have to study for the exam.
Mm-hmm.
How long are you going to give yourself to study?
So my plan right now, I've already been looking over some of the materials, and my schedule is 3 days a week, 8 hours a day. I feel really good about more of the biochemistry, medical nutrition therapy, but the food service for me is my weakest spot. So I imagine that I'll be doing a little bit of extra time on the food service component, but yeah, I've already done a little bit of studying. It can be a little overwhelming, but I'm trying to take it bit by bit.
Are you doing Gene Inman?
Yeah, so I have the audio lecture in addition to the reading materials. Mm-hmm. I've been using Pocket Prep a little bit. I don't have... Huh?
I've heard about it.
Yeah, they have a pretty expensive for me, study guide platform. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm just subscribing to the free version, so they hit me with a new question every day, and I take a quick 10-minute questionnaire. I'm not entirely sure how helpful it's been, but I like it because I think the Inman is a lot of information, whereas the Pocket Prep I think really helps with how the questions are going to be formatted. Mm-hmm. They've given me a few repeat questions, which is a little, which has been useful. But what I think is really cool is when you get an answer right or an answer wrong, they give you the very specific material that they're asking about. So Krause, are you familiar with that text?
Nope.
Krause. I hate to admit that I don't remember the name of the book, but I used it for one of my MNT courses. So it's been nice because then it gives you the reference and the page number so you can go review that material if you get it wrong, which I think is helpful.
I haven't even started to study, really. I've been focused on the schoolwork, and then I think I'm pretty much going to hunker down and just close myself in a coffee shop or the Sapien Center and study constantly for weeks and then take it.
Yeah.
But I won't get anything done unless if I schedule the exam because otherwise I'll just keep pushing it out.
Do you have to wait until you graduate? Because that's something I'm not entirely sure is specific to my program, or if it's something that you can, person by person schedule.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked into scheduling or...
We've got some time.
I have to focus on one task at a time or I get overwhelmed. And they meet with us and they're like, you need to be thinking about when you're going to take the exam and you need to be studying. And my mindset is that I'm studying by completing the coursework. So definitely. I'm focused on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I wish was a little bit different, and in my cohort, everyone was at a different place. So some people were completing clinical rotations, some people were working in WIC or doing their community rotations. We did have one course where we would go through some of the text, but for some people, it was unaligned with their focus at the time. So I found that could have been a really powerful thing for me during my internship, and it probably would have reinforced some of these concepts. But I'm totally the same way as you right now, where I was like, I just need to get through this, and then I can come back to it when it's time.
I wish I had taken medical nutrition therapy last, right before the exam. But with my program, it was one of the first courses we took. And I'm not going to just talk bad about my program, but I feel like the order of it is a little bit off. So I think a lot of the onus is going to be on me coming up to the exam, just going through every bit of material. Did you get the Gene Inman binder? The classic binder?
Okay, I don't want to get in trouble for any copyright issues.
Oh, yeah, we'll gloss over it. I got the binder. My program paid for it, and it is dense. It's pages and pages, and it's not even, the information is not written into paragraphs. It's just very straightforward. This is the exact information that you need to know word for word. And we went through, and Gene Inman sat on a Zoom call with us.
Really?
Yes, which I was not expecting. I thought Gene Inman was like the name of the study prep materials.
Right.
And there just pops Gene Inman, and she plows through 7 hours of material, doesn't want to take a break. It's like, we're doing it now.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, we're going to go through and highlight everything you need to know. And you're honestly going through highlighting just about everything on the page. And it's very specific numbers, too. She said, you have to know the exact number for the exam.
Yeah, I found that. So I do have the text, and I was listening to the audio that accompanies it. And I found myself, normally if I watch podcasts or do stuff like that, I am prone to speeding it up. But this one, I was like, man, I need it at 0.25 speed, because it's so fast that I almost, I'd have to listen to it in my sleep.
I don't know what she was on before that meeting, but I'm sitting there and I am trying to highlight as quickly as she speaks. Okay. And I can't keep up with her. And at one point, towards the end, I just decided I'm just going to study all of this. If it's in the binder, it's relevant, and I'm going to learn it. But it's basically as if you're trying to memorize a book. So that's what we have lying at us.
Yeah, I think it's like 500 pages.
I have to check how many pages are in the binder, but it's not an easy read either. Like I said, you're not reading a story with paragraphs. You are reading, this is the protein content of 5 ounces of fish. Yeah. And it's that after, and like you said, a lot of food service, a lot of food, like temperature controls, safety protocols that go into place. So
yeah,
it's dense, but
I got overwhelmed by sweetbreads.
Oh, organs. Yeah. What do you mean you got overwhelmed?
Sweetbreads. Hold on. Quick breads.
Oh, okay.
The food science.
Completely different thing.
Sorry. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I don't know why I said that. But no, I was reading through the food science part of it, and I was like, man, I remember this from my food science courses like 4 years ago. Actually, it's probably more recent, but it just feels like so long.
That's the thing, too. It depends on your study method. So I was just telling you before this, I did a module on PCOS, and I got really deep into it and researched it and completed this activity for it. And then a week later, it's completely gone. So I'm honestly thinking that before the exam, I'm just going to be reading this stuff like 15 hours a day. And I'll be happy when it's over.
Totally.
Anyway, I have to not do that. I do that routinely.
The click.
Yeah.
Moving on.
When I'm talking, just disregard. Maybe we can equalize that out. Do you want to talk about coffee?
Let's talk about coffee. That's the plan.
Are there any disclosures that you'd like to make about your interests or corporate ties to large coffee?
No, I'll try hard not to drop any of my favorite brands.
What do you have? Is this Thunderbird? What is this?
It's Houndstooth.
Okay.
Which I kind of choose for the convenience. They're across the street from me. I will admit this morning I woke up and I only had about 4 or 5 coffee beans in my coffee container. So I ran out this morning. So I like to go over there. It's honestly really nice. They're very friendly. So
I was going to go to Starbucks because I'm extremely basic. If I'm not making coffee, I'll buy high-end coffee and make it at home, but I'm not picky when it comes to grabbing coffee. And I worked at Starbucks. That's my disclosure. I worked there for 2 years, and I loved it. It's an amazing company to work for. And you do learn a lot about coffee when you work there.
That actually makes me think. I'm from Massachusetts, so we all have our Dunkies.
Mm-hmm.
I did work at Dunkin' Donuts for, I don't know, I want to say 4 months in between gap years. But I imagine I did not learn as much about coffee as you did
Yeah, but
at Starbucks.
that's pretty cool working at Dunkin'. Any friends that I make from the Northeast, it's like they bleed Dunkin' Donuts. It's insane.
Oh, it is a reality there. Definitely.
What's the drink that you get? Their normal coffee, doesn't it come with like 2 sugars and cream?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't say that was the catalyst for me getting into nutrition, but
But it was.
there were some very concerning things. So this was, oh goodness, I want to say coming up on 10 years now that I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite a while ago, but they had certain portions that were assigned to certain cup sizes. I forget the exact numbers. But there were sometimes kids coming in getting extra sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can't even tell you the proportion, but that was the moment I realized it's not about the coffee all the time. A lot of it is about the add-ins.
Yeah,
So.
no kidding. You can go get a cold brew every day and improve your health. But if you're getting a Frappuccino every day or a latte with added sugar, I mean, the people would come in and they'd get just like a vanilla latte, and they don't realize that for a grande, it's like 4 pumps of sugar, and it's just straight sugar. There's a little bit of flavoring, but completely different from buying just a straight Madagascar vanilla or something like that, which is what I do at home. I add all sorts of weird stuff into my coffee. I'll put rosemary in the grounds and then brew it through. It's so good, and
Because of the flavor.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think it was Ben Greenfield that turned me on to that. I was at one of my rotations and I got an email about coffee. And I wasn't busy at the time. This is misrepresenting me, but I did read through that and I was sharing it with my preceptor, all the different like hacks and things that you can do with coffee just to, not add tons of sugar or cream or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of just full fat cream in my coffee. Something about how the fat particles aren't broken up in full cream and your body can digest it easier.
Really?
Yes. And he gets all into that. If you're interested, I might link it in the show notes if I can find his email. But Ben Greenfield is huge on just optimizing. So he'll go into extreme detail on anything. I started chewing nicotine gum because of him. He's one of these optimizers, so just every aspect of your life. If you're super curious about creatine, I'm sure he has a 10-page summary on creatine. But yeah, things like rosemary, Madagascar vanilla, tons of cinnamon. Cinnamon helps regulate your blood glucose. Mm-hmm. And he's also a fan of doing like full fat cream if you're going to add anything into your coffee, and none of these like Coffee Mate mixtures that you see that are full of seed oils and sugars. You are every day not optimizing your health by adding in something like caramel Coffee Mates. Think of the changes you can make by just doing some heavy cream and cinnamon instead.
Definitely. It's closer to the source too, It's far less processed, and you're definitely right. I mean, I have to admit, I don't even really like the flavors. I really love coffee for the coffee aspect of it. I don't need anything like caramelly or mocha.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say something I've been doing, and this is not for optimization. Well, let me back up. I really like full fat cream because of the texture. So this is aside from the
Coats your
optimization.
tongue.
Oh my God. It just tastes so much better to me. But I've been adding, are you familiar with the Element electrolyte packs?
To your coffee? No.
Yes.
No, don't.
Okay, wait, let me explain.
What flavor?
Chocolate.
Oh, they do have a chocolate, and that's fine. That's normal.
So
I'm like, you're adding your lemon lime electrolyte packet.
Mango, is it mango chili?
Mango, yeah, raspberry too. Yeah.
I actually really do love those flavors, but I feel like that, actually maybe raspberry would be good in the coffee. I don't know.
No,
That
it wouldn't.
But I got I buy from them, and I got this like sampler pack, And actually now I've had 2 sampler packs. So the first one, I tried the chocolate salt in a hot chocolate, which I thought would be very complimentary, and it was fine, but it was just way too salty. But in my coffee, I forget exactly where I read this, but I want to say James D. Nicolantonio. Are you familiar with him at all? So he's the author of the Salt Fix as well as the Mineral Fix. And I forget exactly what the information is, but he mentioned mineral depletion and maybe adding some salt, I think. Sorry, this is kind of distant in my memory. So that's actually what got me interested in adding it. And it's okay. I do about half the pack.
I've read that adding salt can cut back on the acidic taste of coffee as well.
I think it could be a taste thing, but he's very into mineral absorption and stuff like that. So I suspect that it has something to do with optimization. I just can't remember.
I don't know why I'm getting on to you for adding element to coffee, because I'll sit there in the morning and just add tablespoons of Redmond real salt to my water. Ooh. And it's getting carried away. It's to the point where I've become accustomed to the salt. And if I drink regular water, my body's almost like, what is this? Can we have the seawater, please? And I'll just drink seawater all day.
Well, that's not a bad thing. I actually really like the flavor of salted water. I have to admit, like, you know how some people are like, I hate water. It just doesn't taste like anything. I don't need the flavor, but are you adding, so I know Redmond Real Salt has like their electrolyte line and then just are you just doing the regular salt?
Just salt.
Oh, cool. Great stuff.
Yeah, magnesium. We could get off on a tangent talking about electrolytes, because I'm obsessed with that. Even this that I'm drinking right now is loaded with electrolytes, because I'm hypotensive.
Okay.
I work out all the time. I sit in the sauna all the time. I'm sweating all day, so I've noticed I really have to replete my salts, and especially if I'm on a really low carbohydrate diet, like I pretty much always am. You just don't hold on to the salts the same way.
Definitely.
So that doesn't apply to someone that's eating pizza and bread all day. Like, you don't need to load up on the salts. I'm sure we'll get backlash. I'm sure someone will comment like, oh, well, the daily recommended amount is 1.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them that if I had the daily recommended amount, I would pass out 6 times a day. So I think it depends on the person.
Well, individuality, you know, like everyone has different needs. So it's important stuff.
Okay. And I was just thinking, where is your program based out of?
Yeah, so I'm through UVM, the University of Vermont. The dietetic internship I completed actually in Vermont through the UVM Medical Center and sort of like surrounding organizations. But in terms of coursework right now, I'm remote. So I do currently live in Austin, even though I'm just finishing up the last few weeks.
I'm going to link your Instagram if you like, or if you have a page that talks about Maggie. It's just a bio page, and it's just a big your face is the background, and then it's just talking about how great you are for pages.
It has a big picture of meat
next to your face.
Meaty Maggie. I like that alliteration.
Yeah. So your Instagram profile is something about butter. What is it?
Yes, it is kind of a pun, which I actually don't really think of that when I say it, but it's getting butter all the time.
I love it.
Yeah. My mom is a half Polish, and that is her magic ingredient in everything. So I will admit that I was a vegan for a while, and even then my mom was like, girl, at the very least you need your butter.
Yeah, saute the veggies in butter.
Yeah. It just makes everything better.
Did that make you stay vegan longer because you almost were getting those vitamins from the butter, do you think?
No. So, when I was vegan, I had 2 knee surgeries. Actually, I think for the second one, I'd already started eating animal products again. But my mom snuck me eggs shortly after surgery.
Snuck you them? How do you mean?
She made me some sort of food that had eggs in it.
And she didn't tell you?
And she didn't tell me. And, you know, honestly, back then, well, you know, you're a little bit malnourished, maybe not that balanced. I might have freaked out a little bit if I had known. I can't remember the exact circumstances, like how I figured it out, but she was like, this is what you need for healing and restoration. And truly, you know, like that first knee surgery I had, perhaps this could have been for other reasons, but it failed. And I had to get another knee surgery. And, you know, that's something that can happen, I understand. But
was there inflammation?
Around my knee?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yes. So I had a meniscal tear, which is the cartilage in your knee.
In the center, right?
Yes, exactly. Now they've just been scraping it down, or they have scraped it down so it doesn't catch, but it was catching at like a 90-degree angle, which was a little bit painful, but this is kind of odd. Like, I first noticed it because I would just be sitting and I'd have this like pulsing pain, which can happen. So I guess to get to the end of it now is where I am in my more evolved state. I actually am really grateful to my mom. I will say the first day I came back from, or one of my first nutrition courses, I came back and I said, Mom, you know, the only difference between whole fat and low fat milk is the fat content. And my mom looked at me and she was like, nope, not right.
Sugar. Watered down.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, your nutrient absorption is different. And I think my mom is like, just kind of based on where she comes from, the philosophy of her own parents, she's really committed to whole food products. And, you know, I have to say I am my mother's daughter now after so many years being able to think about it. You know, she's absolutely right. So
isn't that so funny? Like, as you learn, you come back full circle and you're like, oh, I should have been eating the meat and the eggs.
Definitely. But I do have to commend her too, because, and all of my family members who dealt with it, gosh, you know.
Yeah. Well, I gave myself water poisoning when I was in my teens, and I went through, not diagnosed anorexia, but I got to a point where I was obsessed with being thin and I just didn't eat, and it wasn't the way to live. I was tired all day, every day. And now I just eat as much as I possibly can, which when you're eating nutrient-dense foods like steak and eggs, I'm just not hungry ever. And it's amazing for people that are looking for weight loss, and we really should get back to coffee. But it's great. You eat nutrient-dense foods and you think, oh, I'm eating these heavy foods, I'm going to gain weight. But you stop eating other things because your body is not hungry for protein anymore. There's protein signaling that happens. So if you wake up and you have a steak and eggs, you're going to make it till maybe 4 or 5 p.m. before you even start thinking about eating.
Definitely. No
anyway,
sugar cravings, no crazy blood glucose.
Oh, no.
You know?
No, and I'm sure at the clinic I was at doing my diabetic rotation, I'm sure if we had taken my blood glucose, it would have alarmed the dietitian because it's low. It's always low. And I haven't taken it recently because I don't feel the need to, but I'm sure, you know, if we did my A1C, it would be very, very, very low. And my fasting glucose is probably minimal.
Have you ever had it tested?
I used to wear like a ketone monitor, but I've never habitually checked my blood sugars. I just don't see a reason to. I don't have the symptoms of low blood sugar, so I think your body becomes optimized at using fat and going through gluconeogenesis that you just don't. It's such a foreign concept to me that someone would need to drink orange juice or have fruit or something to get their blood glucose up, because I think my body just does that for me at this point. You know, the steak just turns into blood glucose, so it's just something I don't have to think about.
Yeah.
So we both took notes, and researching coffee is so much fun because we all drink it every day. I saw this wonderful quote that said something like, even if there were no health benefits to coffee and it was even detrimental, why are you even reading this? You're going to continue drinking coffee. It made me laugh.
Good point. I think that's definitely, there's something to that.
How many cups do you have a day?
So I mentioned to you earlier, I've actually been actively working on decreasing my coffee consumption. So right now I want to say I'm probably around 1 or 2. If I drink it at all. I've been really into like black tea sometimes. So I kind of just like that there's a different flavor there, and I'm not entirely sure if there's science behind this, but I can feel a little bit less jittery sometimes.
Yeah.
With black tea over coffee. So but I am a former coffee addict.
Okay.
I will admit. So this is a huge progress for me.
Okay. I've done rounds where I'll switch to decaf, and I enjoy that a lot. I'm suddenly, you know, it's 3 p.m. and I'm going, yeah, I'm a little tired, but where's my anxiety today? It's gone. So I'll do decaf for a couple of weeks, and then I'll titrate back onto the full calf. I'll spoon a couple of scoops of decaf in there, and then I'll add a little bit of caffeine, and it just gets gradually more condensed, and I'll do full calf. And right now I'm full calf, 100% full calf. I do 2 or 3 cups a day, and it's never enough. I go to sleep sometimes, and I'm thinking, man, if only I could have figured out how to get another cup of coffee into my day, because I do love it. I just like the taste, and like you, I'll drink it straight black, or I'll add in some Sapient Center milk, that full fat milk. It's so good. Just cream, milk, and coffee.
So you do both milk and cream?
No. It depends on what I have. Yeah, when I have that milk available to me, I'll use the milk, and if I don't, I'll use like a full fat cream.
Okay. So you love the flavor
of the coffee, yeah.
It's not about the energy, the focus. It's about the flavor.
I don't know what it is. It's everything. It's the 1,000 chemicals that are in coffee, I'm sure, that drives a brain process where I try to do the sunlight in the morning. I know I don't get enough, but I'll grab my cup of coffee and I'll go sit on the front porch and just kind of breathe easy for 30 minutes before I start really running through anything in my brain. And I find that to be super relaxing. It almost takes, if you just grab your cup of coffee and you're on the go, I feel like that can add to the anxiety almost. So I try to have the coffee in like a calm meditative state. And I find that reduces the anxiety.
Yeah. Well, it's a ritual, you're making the space to appreciate it rather than just zoom.
Just chug it down.
Yeah.
I think the whole culture around Dunkin' Donuts is people are on the run and they're just on the way to their UPS job and they're just slamming down the Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, yeah.
I worked for UPS. A fun little caveat there, just for a little bit, because I got tired of loading Pirelli tires into the back of a truck.
What a workout.
It's so, I'd go in at like 5 or 6 in the morning and I'd burn 2,000 calories by like 11 a.m.
Dang.
Yeah. And that's probably underrepresented as well because it was just the Apple Watch. And,
okay.
I was in school at the same time, so I would try to sleep until 2 p.m. And then I was just totally wrecked for the rest of the day. Respect for anyone that works for UPS, honestly. Those are hardworking people.
I can imagine.
So I have some general information here and you probably ran through a lot of this too in your research, but that coffee cherries are actually from the coffea plant. And it's technically a type of fruit, and they extract the pulp to obtain those green coffee seeds that are roasted. And I know you did a little bit of research on like the different roasting processes and processing processes. But I did write it contains more than 1,000 substances, including caffeine, potassium, magnesium. Antioxidants is the big one that if you're just talking to a layperson, they'll say coffee has antioxidants. And there's actually speculation on where the word coffee comes from, but there is a Kaffa region of Ethiopia, and different meanings for the word coffee over time have been in different languages were wine, because of the dark color and the effects that it had on the brain. The dark one, which I love, I'm going to call coffee the dark one from now on.
Dun, 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 dun.
And it also means to have no appetite.
Interesting.
The appetite suppressant quality of it.
Okay. That tracks.
Do you want to add anything there? Just general overview of coffee when you think of the word coffee.
So, one thing I was interested in hearing from you about, I was reading sort of like the folklore behind how coffee came to be. And, I think it's the sheep or the goats. Is it goats?
I believe it's goats.
Do you believe the story?
Caldy? Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I read the book, The History of the World in 7 Glasses by Tom Standage. Have you read it?
So I didn't read it. My boyfriend gave it to his dad for Christmas. So I've heard some tidbits here and there.
It's amazing.
Okay.
It's one of the most interesting books to read that gives you a background on world history while also explaining how certain beverages shaped world history.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a huge paper on the coffee and the wine sections of the book. But yeah, I absolutely believe the goat herder bit. Do you want to explain to people what that is?
Yeah. So they believe that coffee was first discovered when a shepherd noticed some of his herd eating the berries, and they exhibited energy, excitement, and from there, coffee was discovered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I also read a tidbit about burning the bushes and something like that. But I was reading that there's a little bit of speculation as to whether or not it's true. So, I mean, I can imagine. I think that would be. It makes sense to me.
The whole thing is speculative, yeah. They think that was around the 9th century. And this goat herder's name was Caldi. And the bit that I was reading said that they couldn't sleep at night. They were just running around. And it's funny to picture because something's going on, so he paid attention to what they were eating. There's another story that, and forgive me, I don't remember the culture or the man's name or anything, but he was ostracized and he was out trying to survive, and he found these berries, and he tried to roast them, was unsuccessful, and then ended up boiling them in water.
Okay.
And then he said that he was rejuvenated and was able to survive from the coffee. That's fun.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, so they say it originated on the Ethiopian plateau, but then cultivation and trade just went through the entire Arabian Peninsula. Mm-hmm. And it says by the 15th century, coffee was being grown in the Yemeni district of Arabia. And by the 16th century, it was known in Persia, Egypt, Syria, and Turkey. So obviously popular. Oh, and then just another random general fact that there's 2 major coffee plant varieties. Did you learn this at Dunkin' Donuts?
I did not, but I do know about it now.
Okay,
in my Evolve.
Fill us in.
Okay, so in terms of the beans, sorry, I have them listed here. It's Arabica is one of them, and then I had it written somewhere.
Robusta.
Yes. Is that how you say it?
That's how I'm saying it.
Yeah, I think there was 4, but in my research, I realized that those are the only 2 that are really consumed.
Major, yeah, the major ones.
But I think I read that there's over 100 something varieties. So.
Oh, I started getting into that. I got overwhelmed. Let's just stick with Arabica.
Arabica? I don't know.
It is a tough one.
I guess Robusto is a little bit more obvious.
Robusta.
But I think Starbucks has
Some
that
coffee expert is just losing it right now in the car.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you brought up wine. So just to fill people in addition to studying, I've also worked in fine dining. So from that, I've gotten a lot of exposure to wine. And one thing that really struck me is the concept of terroir. Are you familiar with that concept? No. So I actually saw it discussed in the context of coffee, which I thought was interesting. But in wine, terroir is kind of all of the different elements that come together to produce a wine. So that includes things like the climate, the soil, in some cases, how it's being processed. And I thought that was really interesting with coffee as well. Just to think about how, you have the plant itself, which I guess could be compared to different sorts of grape varieties. But then you also have where it's grown, the climate, and then as we're going to go through, I guess at some point, how it's processed and then how that sort of affects flavor. But the idea of terroir, and I think part of why I really love the idea of wine, is you really capture the where and the how of how food is produced. And maybe this isn't always discussed in the context of tomatoes, or I guess in meat, grass-fed or not, and other things like that. You can really tell a big difference. But I think it's such a great example of how where your food comes from impacts the flavor, the nutrient profile. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was really cool to think about coffee in that context. So
yeah, you definitely have food snobs that will tell you, oh, this is a specific tomato from this region of the world. But it's definitely more common with things like coffee and chocolate and wine. At least that's what I notice it with the most. And then there's, I don't know if you read much into single origin coffee. Yeah, where people are very selective and they want to know exactly where their coffee came from. And then I imagine it's pretty fun. If I ever have the money for it, I want to do just a series of single origin coffees and then have like tastings in the morning and see if I can tell the difference.
Yeah. I'm actually really happy that you brought up the single origin thing, because I was looking a little bit into that. And I was kind of considering my own coffee consumption. And I will admit, my boyfriend kind of rules the house in terms of choosing. I grew up on Dunkin' Donuts. Like, no hate to them. It's in my blood, but not the best coffee. So I kind of let him take control in terms of choosing the beans. But I was looking into the single origin versus estate. And this is kind of like wine too, where something I didn't realize in my head, I always thought single origin was from one particular producer, one area. At least based on what I was reading, single origin can be from just like an entire country.
Oh.
So it seems a lot more broad than I imagine when I think of singular. And in that discussion, I read a little bit about how beans can be mixed, they can be blended, kind of like wine. Not to make this all about wine, sorry, but
it's fun. You can make it about wine.
So that this is kind of where I was coming from with the wine comment. But estate, which you also have with wine too, is from a specific plot, specific producer, specific area. And I was kind of looking into like, equal trade and whether or not that's, because I was interested in, what's the best way to source coffee. It turns out that you can source directly from the source. That's been a rising interest for people. So I did check out some websites that allows that to happen, which for me, I guess I really like the idea of buying directly from the producer. I imagine that it's probably more beneficial for them. And actually some of the articles that I read about discussed, equal trade and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think we can all agree that an equal trade is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it was talking a little bit more of the nuances between, rising coffee prices and the implications of that. So after my research and kind of looking into this, perhaps that's something that I will pursue on my own.
Yeah.
But I imagine if it's not blended, you really get a lot more of the terroir that I'm talking about.
Right. I'm so interested in trying, this coffee is from this specific region in Ethiopia, and you can really taste the soil. And then, I can't remember. Just in researching sustainable coffee, there are so many brands that say that they're sustainable, but they're not actually. They might use something like shade growing or good water practices, conservation practices, but in the reality of it, 25 million people, I think, that rely on coffee as a way of life. It's not necessarily putting the money back into their hands and creating generations of coffee growers. It's how can we exploit this region very quickly for some coffee, call it like single origin or call it sustainable. And I don't remember the coffee brand. I'm sorry. Maybe I can link it in the show notes, but Dr. Anthony Gustin talks about a coffee that he likes that, they give you full information on where this is coming from. It was the best tasting coffee I've ever had. It's very expensive, but you have to keep in mind you're trying to help the people that are growing the coffee. So it's a volatile market and you might be paying more for it, but do you want to support the people that are giving you coffee every single day? Because it can be a resource that can run out if you're not taking care of the earth where this stuff is growing. The soil becomes magnesium deficient. It's something of interest to me. If I wasn't going into dietetics, I would consider going into sustainable coffee because you really have to take care of the soil if you want a good quality crop.
Is that a recent realization?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I got this newsletter from Dr. Gustin, and obviously I told you I was reading a ton about Dr. Ben. Is it doctor or is it just Ben Greenfield?
I think it's just Ben Greenfield.
Yeah, he ain't no doctor. Get out of here.
He talks like it, though.
He's
got a lot of info.
He's extremely intelligent, but I just love reading about coffee. I feel like a lot of people probably do because it's something that you consume every single day. The science is really varied on it. I won't come to that conclusion. I looked up health benefits of coffee, and we can get to that. But I did want to give like a quick definition of what sustainable coffee is. And I put it in air quotes. Even on here, I put it in quotes because it basically said there are labels that allow you to say this is sustainable coffee. But unless if you have in-depth knowledge of where this coffee is actually coming from and how many hands it's traded off to, you don't know how those people are being paid for the crop that they produce. And you don't know, is it shade grown? Like, are they using practices that will conserve the soil and the water? But anyway, so sustainable coffee is coffee that's grown in a way that conserves nature and provides better livelihoods for the people who grow and process it. So when I think of sustainability, I'm just thinking of the environmental impact, but it is true that you have to make a system where these people can continue that career throughout their life with a good wage, and then possibly pass that on to their children and keep the business going. And this does say as well, processing, and I'm going to link all of the references that I use, but processing coffee is extremely water intensive. And right now there's a lot of deforestation of rainforests to make room for coffee plantations because that's just the ideal climate for the coffee bean. It's way more than I said earlier. It's 120 million people rely on coffee for their livelihood.
Wow.
Yeah.
And kind of to your point, if it's something that you consume every day, I know, I will admit, I drink coffee before I drink water in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
I'm ready for it. That's what I'm looking forward to. Eyes are open. I know Dr. Andrew Huberman has been talking about delaying coffee, which I will say I've kind of experimented with a little bit. But I do think, if you consider the impact that your purchase makes, it is worth it to consider a more sustainable and an ethical approach. And actually, to your point, my program at UVM has a sustainability focus. And through the Academy of Dietetics, they do have the principles of a sustainable system. And treating the people or considering the people within the system is weighed just as equally as the environment or, other factors. So I think that that's a really good point, is really ensuring that, and especially considering how many people are dependent on that industry. I mean, that's kind of an overwhelming number.
Yeah. I have statistics on which countries consume the most caffeine, but it's actually not Americans, which I would have guessed we were at the top.
Yeah.
If you just picture a businessman in New York with his bagel and his cup of coffee, and then he has a coffee break. Like I definitely thought, but it's we'll get to that. But
Ooh, a teaser.
Yeah. So it's actually the most widely traded tropical agriculture commodity as well. Americans themselves drink 146 billion cups a year collectively.
Okay, I see it.
That's a lot.
I see it.
And just a quick note on how you can make coffee more sustainable. It says better crop management, water use practices, using pheromone boxes to ward off insects instead of pesticides, composting the bean waste, shade growing, and reforestation practices. So I think the biggest issue in my limited research on the sustainability is cutting down rainforests to make room to grow these coffee crops, and then not doing things like shaded growing that would limit the water usage. The volatile markets are not paying these people enough to take care of the coffee plant. Not creating a commodity that can be passed down through generations, creating something that's short-term and profit-driven. I mean, if you think about it, I don't want to buy coffee from some place that I know they just plowed down a rainforest for it and it's gonna last 15 years before they deplete the soil. I'd rather pay $30 a bag for coffee to know, oh, this is a small farm, in Ethiopia, and it's set up to where this guy's going to grow the coffee for the rest of his life, and then his son's going to take over and grow the coffee for the rest of his life.
That sounds like a beautiful system.
Picture a little farm in Ethiopia. And the reality is probably that most markets, most of the coffee that Americans are buying is probably not sustainable, terrible for the environment. So I'll try to link at least this one that I know of that Dr. Gustin recommended. And, I harass him with emails every now and then. But I reached out, I think, via email and said, like, this is great coffee. Thank you for recommending this because it was really delicious. And I didn't feel terrible drinking it. I didn't sit there worrying about, like, pesticides or did a toucan lose its house because I'm drinking this cup of coffee this morning.
Oh.
Yeah, a cute little toucan.
They're important things to think about, though. You know, you're so far from where coffee is grown and what's going on, you know? Sometimes it takes just realizing.
Mm-hmm. Do we know if coffee is grown in the United States at all?
Oh, man. So I know it's grown in Hawaii, and then I want to say that I read that there is some production in California, I want to say, which I was kind of surprised by. I guess it
Can you
makes sense.
fact check that, Jamie?
Yeah, please.
He's not listening. He didn't bring his laptop.
He's out of the office today.
Ridiculous. Why am I paying him? Yeah, so we talked about how it started on the Ethiopian plateau, allegedly, spread throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and then it spread throughout, it spread to Europe, and they actually had public coffee houses in the Arabian Peninsula. Did you read that?
I didn't read that, but I want to say in Michael Pollan's book.
Pollen? Like,
Pollan?
like Pollen?
I think it's P-O-L. Have you heard of him before? Ooh, okay. I recommend. He wrote the book. You probably are familiar with this. The Omnivore's Dilemma.
Nope.
Food Rules.
Nope. I'm under red.
Well, you know, honestly, props to him. I love his materials. I think he's great. I think he exposed a lot of people to thinking about their food in a way that was really digestible. No pun intended. But anyways, he wrote this book called This Is Your Mind on Plants or Your Mind on Plants.
You told me about that one.
Yeah. But he made quitting coffee sound very sexy to me.
No. Not at all.
Not happening.
I'll read it though.
Yeah.
I'll try anything 3 times, you know?
Okay.
Send me the books.
I mean, you're kind of, so in my research, just one of the things I thought was really interesting is that in the United States for coffee to be labeled decaf, it has to have 97% of its original caffeine content removed.
Okay.
So there still is a 3% caffeine content there, but I think you're kind of on your way.
I was aware, yeah. When I was drinking the decaf, I knew there's still some calf in there.
I wonder if it's negligible, though. I mean,
it didn't give me the same energy at all. But people that are weird about decaf, I don't understand it because it's exactly the same. You still get all the compounds other than the caffeine. So the other health benefits that we'll talk about are still there with decaf. It tastes just as good. People can argue that it doesn't taste as good. I think they just don't know what they're talking about because it's just the caffeine. And I would have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure caffeine is a tasteless molecule, isn't it? You're not tasting that. It's not, anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like fat coating your tongue. You're not going to notice a difference.
Well, one of the things I did look into was the decaffeination process.
Me too.
Yeah, so maybe you saw some of this as well, but, you know, a lot of it is literally just focusing on processing the caffeine out. And I want to say, sorry, I didn't mean to click myself.
You can.
It's fun. So there's a Swiss water approach. And I think that's the only one that it seemed like it wasn't just working on the caffeine, that it might also impact other compounds in the coffee. But as far as I read, it didn't seem like it was going to make that much of a profile difference. So.
And taste, yeah. There you go, using your wine language, profile difference. I'm like, took me a second.
Oh.
Well, it would look the same if you took a photograph of it from the left or in front, because I'm using artistic terms. We're profiling the coffee beans now? Where were you on the night of Mesa? Yeah.
What was the flavor on your palate after you had that cup of coffee?
You know what I love? In Seattle, there's a classic Starbucks next to the market, and you don't have to go to that one because the line's ridiculous and it's just a really old Starbucks, but they do have a Starbucks Reserve there.
Okay.
And you walk in and it's this giant roastery, and you can pretty much order like a majority of the Starbucks roasts that they've ever had. So you can walk in and say, I'd like to do a tasting, and you can select the different coffees. I don't know if I've ever been happier because I was walking around Seattle a lot. I was drinking a lot of coffee. And then I was also doing weird stuff like combining chocolate with coffee.
Okay.
I was on a high when I was in Seattle because there was coffee everywhere. But if you're in Seattle, check out the roastery if you're into trying different flavors of coffee.
Was there the Guinness effect?
What's the Guinness effect?
You know how everyone says that when you go to Ireland and you have Guinness, it just tastes totally different. It's like so much better than in the United States.
I haven't heard that, but I believe you.
I don't know that that's like a coined term, but is it kind of the same though? Like when you go to the birthplace of Starbucks, that the coffee there you think is maybe perhaps just a little bit more quality than like the place down the road?
I think the coffee was probably exactly the same. I was just so looking forward to it, and I knew there was a coffee culture in Seattle, and I've always wanted to live in Seattle. But I can tell you when I tried the different types of coffee, there were distinct flavor differences. Mm-hmm. And you don't get to do that enough. You have one cup of coffee, you don't really taste the difference. And then by the time the next day comes, of course, you're not going to remember exactly how that coffee tasted. But I've even done at home, I've brewed like a dark roast and then like an extremely light roast and tried the two next to each other, and the difference is light and day. Speaking of which, where is it? Oh yeah, so blonde and dark roasts. I've been saying this wrong my entire life, and it's really messed up because I worked at Starbucks. They actually have the same caffeine content. Did you know this?
Ooh.
It's negligible.
I had no idea. I have to say I'm a blonde roast hater.
Really?
Not for me.
Oh, my favorite.
I like it dark and rich and super acidic.
Rich.
Yeah. I want to have, like, you know how you're talking about the chocolate and coffee?
You know what?
Huh?
I think, I think the blonde roasts are actually more acidic.
Really?
My stomach's growling.
I couldn't hear.
So blonde roasts are milder. They're roasted less. And then the dark roasts are robust, bold, and they have a longer roast. So you like that. You're a cigar and a very dark red wine with no sugar. You're that kind of person.
You pointed me out. Yeah.
Me too.
But do you like blonde coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like all the coffee. I don't care. I had a professor when I was at St. Edward's studying psychology. That feels like decades ago. It feels so long ago. Don't even ask me about high school. It's another lifetime. But he would either call me Perry, my last name, or he would just yell like "coffee girl." And I was like walking across campus, and he'd be like, "You're the one that works at Starbucks, and every time I see you have a coffee in your hand." And I'm like, "It's the school life, baby, but it's the showbiz. Like, I love coffee." And I don't even realize how much I drink it sometimes, but it's almost ingrained in my personality, my love for coffee. So I just liked that about him. He didn't remember any other details about me. I don't even think he knew my first name, but he'd be like, "It's Perry, it's the coffee girl." And I'm like, I take that. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, they say it's easier to remember stuff by association sometimes too. Yeah. So, but wow. So you are a coffee drinker.
I like it. I want to drink more. You're like, I'm cutting back. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'd like to accomplish 10 cups today. Which, I don't drink. I don't drink that much coffee. But I so love the taste. And I think my love for coffee really accelerated with the liver disease. I've told you I had liver disease. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of research on liver disease. We can touch on that. I don't know how long we've been going. Can you read that?
Oh, no.
Not at all.
Here, we'll cut this part out.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Does it say on your 116? Oh, man. Time flies when you're talking coffee.
We need to get to the details and dirty deets. But,
okay.
So coffee is actually very protective for liver disease. And at the time when I was diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, it was a shock to me because I was running 6 to 10 miles a day. I was training for the marathon. I was eating a runner's diet of oats and bananas and protein, and it absolutely destroyed my liver. I started finding I had no energy at all. I went to my doctor and told him it feels like I'm not metabolizing my food. And I guess he wasn't used to people talking to him that way because he said, you're depressed. We should take antidepressants. So I took SSRIs for a little while, and I just came back to the doctor and I said, once again, I'm not depressed now, but I still feel like I'm not metabolizing food.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a sonogram of the liver, and the tech was just standing next, and it hurt when she was pushing this thing into my abdomen. I'm sitting there wincing, and she's like, there is a lot of fat in your liver. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, tell me something I don't know. And the doctor confirmed it. And I don't think, so I went home and thought about it, and I immediately was doing research, and I was finding that fasting is beneficial for issues of the liver. And I did not eat for 25 to 30 days, just didn't eat anything. And I was around the same build that I am now. But it tells you how much fat, visceral fat I had stored because I didn't lose a ton of weight.
What about lean muscle mass? Did you notice a difference in that, or were you?
I don't know that I was paying as close attention to it as I would now because I'm doing the creatine and the vasodilators and working out every day. So I definitely notice if I'm losing muscle mass nowadays, but I don't really fast. So that was the longest fast I've ever done. I probably will never do a very extended fast like that again because my liver's healthy now. But all I did was black coffee and water. And I didn't tell anyone close to me because I knew if I told someone close to me, they'd be concerned. But if you have liver disease, you can feel it because you do not have any energy at all. And it doesn't matter if you're eating foods, it just doesn't do, it's like it passes right through you because your liver's not breaking down the compounds. But I just, in a way, coffee was like essential to improving my health. And I still drink it. But do you want to go over the liver disease bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting.
Do it.
So what I had and by the way, it's cleared up. We did a repeat sonogram. It was all gone. And that's what's impressive, right? It was 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So after I fasted, I started having a high fat diet. I was very careful. I started off with bone broth, almost a liquid diet at the beginning. And then I switched into a ketogenic diet, and I was absolutely intent on staying in ketosis. But when I went back in, the threat really was like getting on medications and having like surgery or something. I was just so scared. I'm Googling what can happen if your liver just goes beyond diseased. And so yeah, I got rid of it. And that was the biggest thing for me. I'm like, look, you can have a diagnosed condition and you can fix it. You can fix a bathtub, you can fix your backyard, you can fix your liver. Like, it's just figuring out how to do it and doing it.
Can I ask what your doctor's reaction was?
Oh my God. Okay. So first of all, he didn't understand why I had liver disease. I didn't understand why I had liver disease. He said, this is ridiculous. You're running. I know you're running. Like, look at you. And I was thin, and he had been following me for a while. He'd been my doctor for a while here in Austin. And I don't think he could come to terms with the fact that I got rid of the liver disease through fasting and drinking coffee and switching to a ketogenic diet. He definitely doesn't believe in the ketogenic diet, animal-based type thing.
Right.
And I think he wrote it off as some medical anomaly. I think he said, like, you're a statistic. And I was just kind of like, listen, this happened to me. You have visual images of what happened to me over 3 months. Mm-hmm. You know what I did. I'm telling you I didn't eat anything and I had coffee. Should we not talk about this? Or, like, is this something that you want to consider for the 25% of adults in the United States that have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease?
And you know what's really horrifying about that statistic is that it's affecting very young children. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was listening to a podcast. Actually, it could have been shout out Brian Sanders' Food Lies.
Yes.
I think it could have been his podcast. It could have been somebody else, but either way. But it was talking about the rate of fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I forget the exact number. I wish I had it, but it was talking about children as young as 8, 9, 10 displaying symptoms. And
Terrifying.
yeah, I mean, well, it really makes you think what's going on. Yeah. But, your story about the doctor, not to get too off track, and we can reel this back in, but that really makes me think a lot. Like, it gives me vibes of, like, how we approach type 2 diabetes. It's much easier to, we can get into that another time.
Prescribe something, and it's like they accept that that's what people are nowadays. So, especially I'm sure you've seen it in your dietetics rotations. It's never a discussion around diet and exercise. It's a discussion of around how much metformin should we be giving you, and let's try these new GLP-1 inhibitors.
Carb consistent diet.
Yeah.
Make sure you're hitting 50 plus.
Carbs all day.
Oh my gosh.
For God's sake, don't let your blood sugar drop. That was the biggest thing for me. If you look up the symptoms of low blood sugar, people are going to be tired, they're going to be irritable, and they're going to be hungry. But is that worse than losing your legs or losing your vision? Mm-hmm. For me, I'm saying it's okay if someone has a period where they're adjusting to less carbohydrate, and maybe their body's still pumping out the insulin, but it's going to go down over time.
Definitely.
There's the most ridiculous conversations I've ever had in my life around diabetes.
I think that was one of the biggest eye-opening experiences for me in a clinical setting, was realizing, nutrition is so powerful. Aren't you a perfect example of that?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's just not enough faith in patients to take the initiative over their health. It's easier to prescribe a medication and try to make sure people adhere to that than it is to maybe explain or consider that at least having less carbs. I mean, I'm not even necessarily saying go ketogenic, although that has been proven to be a really great intervention, and that's like not even really an argument anymore, even though some people don't really want to consider it. But
it gives you all the necessary energy you need.
And let's just repeat, we don't do dogma here, but carbohydrates are not essential.
No.
I think, do you know Judy Cho?
Yeah, I just followed her. Yeah.
Okay. Love her. Great stuff. She puts out a lot of great material. But she recently posted something on her Instagram story, and in the Google bar, she typed like, are carbohydrates essential? And all the links that came up were different ways of saying carbohydrates are essential. But let's be real, not essential.
No, you don't need them.
You can make it work without them.
I ate only meat for a year.
Yeah.
And I was fine. If anything, I had more energy than I do now.
It's funny how that works for some people.
Yeah. Like I'm eating fructose now.
Okay.
Fructose.
Oh, right.
I have fruit.
Bedtime, right?
Whenever.
Okay.
I should be. I'm trying to front load my calories.
Okay.
Because I have read different studies say that if you stop eating, 5 to 6 hours before sleep, it can improve sleep. And then I've read other studies that say, no, you should have carbohydrate right before bed to convince your body that you're not like in a fasted, dangerous state. Mm-hmm. So I've read both. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I clicked. Wait, so just to clarify, is that in the context of low carb or in general that you're talking about?
General context, yeah. But I found just eating fruit during the day has been serving me fine. But when we're talking about kids, it's the high fructose corn syrup that's causing the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Because what is it? It's about fructose is processed differently by your liver. Your liver has a hard time with it. So in the context of a whole food matrix of fruit, your body can deal with that. You have fiber. It's going to slow down the digestion. But then if you're just chugging down, I don't know, what has high fructose corn? I don't even know what has high fructose corn syrup in it because I don't eat it anymore.
Well, let's make it very brief.
Maple syrup?
Anything? No. Well, oh my God, yes. Wait, sorry. I went to school in Vermont.
Because you don't eat these products either. So
I was going to say, anything that has processed to it probably I mean, let's be real, not like a salsa that you get pre-made at the grocery store. I hope to goodness not. But most food that's processed
There's just some evil guy in the back injecting the jars with fructose.
But now that you say maple syrup, so I was about to say, I lived in Vermont for a year. I love my Vermont maple syrup. I brought some down here with me.
Yeah.
But Aunt Jemima's, whew,
Oh, God.
scary stuff.
No, I love a good maple syrup. Yeah. I love honey. I don't care.
I love honey too, definitely.
You don't have to worry about it if you're not eating these processed, I do not worry about it at all. I'll slather my steak in butter and honey, and it's amazing. It's such a great feeling to just be able to put tablespoons of honey on my food and not worry about my liver, because I know I'm not taxing it the rest of the day.
Definitely.
And you can feel, if you're someone with liver disease or someone that's concerned about your liver, you can feel your metabolism start to work after just a couple of days of fasting. It just hits different. It's like, is this how much energy other people have? I can wake up and I don't feel like I need to eat right away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I go until 1 p.m. without even thinking about food.
Can I ask, because you were talking about how you went to your doctor and you said, actually, do you want to get back to the prompts?
No, it's fine. I mean,
okay.
We'll just slam them in at the end.
I can totally derail this for a very long time. So you talked about how you went to your doctor and you said, I'm just not metabolizing things right. You mentioned that you felt like tired. Like, was there any other thing, like, just so that people are aware, like, was there any other thing that you were like, this is wrong?
I think I was depressed because I wasn't able to do anything. I would wake up and I was so hungry all of the time, just starving, akin to when I was swimming 5 hours a day, that level of hunger. And I was just running like 6 to 10 miles. You should not feel like you're just starving to death. And so I would eat and eat and eat, like a banana, and I would have oatmeal, and I was doing protein powder. I'm trying to think back to my diet, but it was a long time ago. I know it was carb heavy because I knew nothing about low carb diets. I was probably avoiding fat. I was probably doing like a low fat standard American diet. And I knew I was following a bunch of runners. I knew, I need to eat the bananas. I need to eat the oats, peanut butter. Like, was not drinking alcohol. So, it's the weirdest thing to talk about it with people because they say, how did you fast for 25 days? And I tell them, I was already starving. I was already starving to death. Mm-hmm. So, and I was bloated and I was tired. So the decision to just not eat anything, the bloating went away, the tiredness went away. Mm-hmm. I was hungry for a couple days, and then you just know. You go into ketosis like overnight, and you're up at 2 a.m. like, I should organize my closet. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, there's the energy. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm 10 again. And then 15 days in, I'm just like on fire. I'm running again. I'm like, what can I do? Like, should I just never eat again? This is great.
Yeah.
Of course, I got to a point where I started slowing down, and that's probably because I burned through all my visceral fat. Yeah. So I started getting hungry again, and that's when I started introducing fats and bone broth, and I just went full in. I'm like, if this kills me, if this no carb diet kills me, then like this is the end, because like the high carbohydrate diet isn't working and I feel terrible. Mm-hmm. And it like, it's almost so dumb. It's like a cheat code where you just eat nutrient dense foods, and if that includes carbohydrates from vegetables and fruits, that's great for you. It doesn't work for me. And I feel like I am the best possible version of myself when I am eating meat, eating lots of meat, and tablespoons of coconut oil, so much butter, and it's so counterintuitive for people, especially for people that are like overweight and are concerned about gaining more weight. They're not going to think to have a tablespoon of fat.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely can appreciate that. Of course, it's hard when you've been trained to think of the food pyramid. Mm-hmm. With the very little bit on top is the fats. Personally, I love whipping cream.
Yes.
That's my fat.
Do you do the spray bottle of whipping cream?
Absolutely not.
Really?
No.
I do. I don't care. That's my treat. I'll, like, if I'm having strawberries, I will tell you, I've started buying just the full fat heavy cream.
Okay.
Pouring that on the berries. And if you get frozen blueberries,
You're speaking my language.
pour whipping cream on it. It solidifies on the berries, and it makes these little, like, almost looking like yogurt snacks. And the kids will just eat them. Like, they're like, this is wonderful.
I mean, it's better than getting the frozen berries and then putting like a tablespoon of sugar on them, which I used to do as a kid.
Yeah, why'd you do that, you psycho?
I know. Actually,
how dare you not understand nutrition?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I think it was my mom. I mean, she's a pretty, like I described, she's a pretty like aware person, but you know, I think that's just one thing we started doing. But that's one of the ways that I kind of sneak the carbs in at the end of the night, because I work a very active job while I'm finishing up school, and sometimes I find that I'm just not eating enough. Like I actually kind of noticed I was losing some weight recently, which is not really my goal. So I've been doing blackberries and some blueberries, and then it's really easy. I just whip my cream by myself. I have like I'm gonna get this. It's not a spatula, a whisk. I forgot this word the other day. I know it's
You're like so stressed out about making sure you name the.
I know,
because that's on the dietetics exam. You need to know all of the kitchen utensils.
Definitely, and what they're used for. Mm-hmm. Dun 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 dun. Yeah. So, anyways, I whisk it. It takes a couple of minutes, but I just feel better about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with the can if people prefer that.
No carrageenan. Yeah,
that's a big part of it. And I will say I do add a little bit of maple syrup sometimes.
That's fancy.
Oh, it's so good.
Wow, my did you hear my stomach just make that noise?
I did.
It went like.
Is it almost 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock. I already ate. I had 2
I
eggs. Yeah, I'm good for days. I had 2 eggs.
Nutrient dense.
Yeah, I mean, I should do that. It's a process to pull out the whisk, and sometimes with the busy lifestyle, the better thing to do is to just pour the heavy cream on the berries.
I have to try it.
Mm-hmm. Freeze them first.
Yeah.
I have a freezer full of berries. Make sorbet.
Oh yeah, right. I saw that recipe.
Dude, the video was so bad.
I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it looked appetizing, and that's the most important part. And what's great is, like, you know, when you share things like that with people, they get inspired. And even if they don't use your exact recipe, it's like, ooh, I could make a sorbet.
I've had a few people ask me for my sorbet recipe.
There you go.
No one knows about my air fryer carrots, though. I'll share that one with you.
Okay.
It's pretty good. So, I'm sorry, liver disease. So, do you like how I'm sitting just completely unprofessional?
You look very comfortable. I actually can't eat. Oh, wait. They do have our legs in the screen.
Yeah. Get your guns in there.
Flex them.
Dude, they're getting pretty big.
You're looking all right over there.
I'm intimidating.
You are. Small but mighty.
Yeah. We're working
Small
on
but muscular.
Trying to get vascular, dude.
Yeah, you said that.
I want veins everywhere. They're starting to come out of my arms.
All right.
My dad's going to listen to this podcast, and he's just trying to learn something, and he's so type A. He's going to be like, what is this? They're not talking about caffeine.
Coffee.
Okay, so caffeine may not actually be the most important component for liver disease prevention, and because there's actually caffeine in tons of other drinks, and they haven't been shown to provide the same protection against liver disease.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to link this study. It was actually very interesting in the show notes, and I'm going to try to link the free version from PubMed. So the polyphenol CGA may be responsible for the positive metabolic effects, and coffee with high CGA can modulate glucose intolerance and improve or decrease non-alcoholic fatty liver disease development in obese rats. Coffee consumption is associated with lower liver enzyme levels, which are indicators of how well your liver is functioning. And this is a quote from the study. The available experimental as well as clinical evidence suggests that coffee consumption has protective effects against metabolic syndrome, as well as development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. In rat models of experimental studies, coffee's been shown to decrease inflammatory cytokines, modify adipose tissue gene expression, protect against development of adverse metabolic profiles, as well as decrease of liver fat and collagen deposition. Like, do you need another reason to drink coffee?
The list goes on and on and on. Also, it's protective against Alzheimer's. I think I read the same study as you. But
yeah.
So, I mean, all of that is very compelling, but...
And dementia.
Yeah, I mean, sign me up.
Why? I mean, what we should do is an episode about potential... Pardon me, I have to sneeze. Oh my gosh.
Achoo.
Hold it.
Now it's not going to come.
Just push it down.
Isn't it looking into bright lights help with that?
Yeah, I do that. It works, especially if I'm outside.
Huh. Okay.
It's just science. It's science.
Evidence-based.
Coffee intake more than 2 cups per day in patients with pre-existing liver disease has been shown to be associated with lower incidence of fibrosis, which is scar tissue forming in your liver, and cirrhosis, which is just straight up liver death, lower hepatocellular carcinomas, liver cancer, as well as decreased mortality. Decreased mortality, like, I really want to look at what they're using to define that. But yeah, I'll link that study. And this is both regular and decaf. So even if you're not a huge person on the coffee jitters, you can have 2 or 3 cups of decaf a day and get the same liver benefits.
The same many liver benefits.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's actually, I read that coffee was one of America's main source of polyphenols, which are antioxidants. And so, I mean, obviously it's making up a big portion of what people are consuming. I found a really interesting study published in Nutrients Journal in 2022. And it was talking about the effects of coffee on the gastrointestinal tract, narrative review and literature update. So maybe you could include this one in your show notes.
Motility, yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was really interesting that this study revealed was that consuming coffee may stimulate motility in the colon just as much as cereals. At the end of the study, they do talk about how the mechanisms for how this is happening is not entirely understood.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Cereals?
Cereals.
You mean like just if I eat a bowl of Lucky Charms, it's going to cause motility?
That's a really good question.
I mean, it causes motility because it's got to move through your digestive tract, but they're saying like it has the same sort of effect on your... Yes.
So coffee, it was not... So it was 23... They measured 23% more motility in the colon than decaffeinated coffee.
Okay.
So I think that this has a little bit more to do with the caffeine than the coffee itself, but also 60% more than a glass of water. And I believe they use black coffee.
Wow.
So that was something I thought was really interesting because you hear a lot about coffee and the diuretic effects. And I mean, maybe this is just an assumption on my part, but, you know, coffee helps keep you regular.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about poop.
Yeah. Dietitian's favorite topic.
You know what I hate is when people say that coffee dehydrates you, because I've looked at studies that say no, it's actually large percentage water. It hydrates you, but it is a diuretic. Mm-hmm. So if you're drinking straight water, it's not going to have the same diuretic effect. If you're drinking coffee and water, you're going to lose more of it. It's going to signal to your kidneys to push the fluid out. So it's not that the actual coffee dehydrates you. Sorry, I had to get that out. I was going to be really mad if I forgot to talk about it.
No, it's important stuff. So that's kind of what I was looking into in terms of motility. There was some other really interesting things too in accessory organs. So drinking coffee is also associated with gastric, biliary, and pancreatic secretions. So in a positive way.
Digestive enzymes?
Yeah. Yeah, bile, things like that. All of those things are needed for digestion. So kind of the idea taken from that is that it helps promote digestion. Mm-hmm. And there was another study that I didn't write down that also kind of reinforced that as well. But generally speaking, we need a lot more research to understand coffee and the effect on colon. What kind of segued me into this is that there was one study that I read that I don't have the name of, sorry, that suggested that coffee may have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer impacts on the lining of the digestive tract, specifically related to the polyphenols that you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's really compelling. And in particular, some of those antioxidants that are mentioned are caffeic acid and chlorogenic acid, which are believed to reduce inflammation and act as antioxidants.
Lovely.
So those are some more benefits to add to that long list.
Well, it's also ridiculous when you look at the amount of inflammatory foods that Americans are eating. You need anti-inflammatory compounds in your diet. That's like one of the benefits of eating fruits. But yeah, all the omega-6, what is it? Is it linoleic or lino? I think it's linoleic acid.
It's linoleic.
The proportion is so skewed. We're eating mostly omega-6 polyunsaturated fats. And hardly any omega-3 polyunsaturated fats.
Actually, I think linoleic is omega-3.
Linolenic is omega-3.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing them now.
Oh, it's okay.
Haven't passed the RD exam yet.
10,000 pages of transcript this week. I think it's linoleic, but watch, I'm wrong.
It's okay.
After reading tons of interviews with doctors talking about omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, I'm probably getting it wrong. I know that 6 is way too much compared to omega-3.
Or maybe you are right, because isn't it? Oh man, I'm sorry. I hate that I questioned you, because now it's a gray area of who knows.
Question me. But we know that this terrible ratio of omega-6 to 3 is super inflammatory.
Yeah.
So if you're getting anti-inflammatory agents in your diet, that's a beneficial thing for most people.
I think you are right that it's linoleic, though, because sunflower seed oil, which some people think is a more acceptable anti-inflammatory seed oil, is acceptable, but it does have a high proportion of that. So, sorry, I feel like this mic is acting crazy. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
It's not going in and out?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to go over other general health benefits that I wrote down?
Well, actually, on the dark side of coffee.
Oh, God.
So, as I mentioned...
The dark one.
Yes, the dark one.
Okay, go ahead.
For a minute, I was trying to remember what you said, and I was like, was it the dark water?
That'd be cool.
The dark water. Where only good things lurk, like...
Mermaid Man, like, evil!
Exactly. So what
90s babies. Sorry.
Yeah, it's us. 93 till... or wait, you were 94, right? Oh, dang. It's okay. Sorry, I just revealed our ages. That's okay, though. With age comes wisdom. So
we have a ways to go.
Yeah, we do. Thank goodness.
Thank God we're, like, trying to learn already, you know?
Isn't that the truth?
Where will we be when we're 45, you know?
Changing the world with nutrition interventions.
Yeah.
I hope. Honestly, though, I mean, when I envision a world when we're 45, I hope things come so far in terms of the healthcare model. Okay. Getting off track. Anyways, I have so much hope for...
You mean the sick care model is what you mean.
Exactly.
Okay.
Important correction. Seriously.
It's so bad.
So as I proclaimed earlier, I am a recovered coffee addict. I know I mentioned that I worked in restaurants. So through most of my academic career, I went to school during the day and then worked in restaurants at night. Many of these restaurants which had an espresso and coffee machine.
Nice.
So my schedule would look like wake up, make coffee, pound it, go to class, get a coffee, pound it.
Your system of a down. Wake up. Wake up in the morning and pound it.
Yeah, literally, exactly. And as fast as you can say
it. Go to school. You wanted to.
Zing, 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 zing. Man, I want to say I probably had like 8 cups of coffee before, 2 or 3. And then I'd get to work.
Wow.
Yes. It was dangerously. Like,
heart rate just...
Yeah, let's be real. You are not a sane person on that schedule. And I will admit that there was also, my cortisol. So coffee raises your cortisol.
Yep.
But at that point, as you can kind of imagine, I wasn't living a very balanced life. I had a lot of stress. I'm worrying about my work, which honestly, there's not a lot of take home. But it's like, working in restaurants is hard. Let's be real.
That's so impressive that you're doing school and working in a restaurant at the same time.
I kind of go back and forth because on one hand, I'm like, it was a saving grace to have a reality check. Because let's be real, like, restaurants are really real places. I will never talk down on restaurants in the sense that, like, honestly, as much as I think going and getting a degree has really obviously shaped my understanding of nutrition and food, I think working in restaurants has also really helped me understand how people eat, why people eat. I understand a lot about good cheese and wine. And anyways, so I'd get to work, pound some coffee at 4. I'd be there till 11. Sometimes I'd be taking espresso at 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Take your last table. You're like, shoot it up.
Going to bed at like 3 a.m.-ish?
Well, so, no, actually. That's the thing is, I don't think that it would delay my sleep, but I think that it would really compromise the sleep that I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole reason I'm bringing this up is adrenal fatigue, which is actually not classified as, like, it's not something that has symptoms that can be diagnosed. It's talked about a lot. I think I hear it a lot in like functional and integrative nutrition circles. But like I mentioned, caffeine raises your cortisol levels. Cortisol is, it circulates in the body from your adrenal glands, which you have 2 of them. They're right above your kidneys. They're involved in a lot of important things like your heart rate, your blood pressure, things like that. And so the idea with adrenal fatigue is that, you wake up in the morning and get a burst of cortisol. That's what wakes you up and keeps you going. And when you're drinking so much coffee, you're constantly stimulating the cortisol in your system, which is good in balance, but kind of like you can imagine, I was a wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that your body is overproducing all of these things to the point where it's exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found myself in a really bad cycle of like, I would wake up, I feel exhausted. I need my coffee. I need my coffee all throughout the day. I need it to get through work, to get out of work. And then I'd rest and I wouldn't feel recovered. And then, so I'm drinking more coffee. So
because it's an adenosine antagonist.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and adenosine is really important. It's a neurotransmitter. And when those are blocked off, I think it blocks them off.
It competes for the receptor.
Okay. So it competes with the receptor. And adenosine is really important for feeling like a sense of sleepiness, right? And it also, I think, helps with maintaining your sleep, so getting you into deeper sleep states and maintaining that. But yeah, so it's not, endocrinologists do not recognize adrenal fatigue, but it's something that's talked about a lot. So that's one of the reasons why, kind of what I was talking about, and this is not to shame coffee, because I don't think that coffee was the problem. I think my use was clearly the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So cutting it back for me actually has been really beneficial. I feel like I get way more of the benefits. I did kind of mention, so one thing I want to talk about is there's about 70 to 140 milligrams of caffeine per cup.
Of drip coffee?
I believe so. I think it was a scale of espresso to a cup. Because I'm pretty sure espresso has around 70 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah, I was reading 70, 75.
So I think that's like a range of different...
That's for a little guy.
Little baby.
Yeah.
I know everyone... Excuse me.
Coffee, I think they base it off of 8 fluid ounces.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's either 8 or 12, but I think 8 is probably more appropriate because, it's a cup and it just makes sense. But one thing that I thought was really interesting was I was reading about how your body metabolizes caffeine. And I always feel like I have my first sip and I'm a whole new person. But it can take about 10 to 15 minutes for the effects to hit.
So it's all psychological, really.
Yes. And I think you've kind of spoken to that. Like, something that you're describing is like your love for coffee. There's something so magical about it. Something so magical about that Dunkies.
Is it? There's got to be some. They're going to discover years from now that one of the 1,000 chemicals is like the most addictive chemical on the planet.
It's a love potion.
And then, they'll put that into some sort of substance that you can inject into someone and just make them crazy about you.
Maybe by the time we're 45.
If coffee was a person, we would be deeply intimate.
Oh.
I just...
You wouldn't have any social life.
It's everything about it. It's the color. It's the taste. It's productivity in a cup, so it's very attractive to me. Mm-hmm. I'm like nicotine patch. I'm like, oh, okay, I like to optimize. So, right now I'm trying a couple different supplements for vasodilating. But a huge interest of mine is things that will improve my cognitive function. So I'm taking like alpha GPC right now, and my dad was joking. He's like, okay, all this is fine, but don't tell me that you're taking cocaine and that it's good for you. And I'm like, that's a maybe in the future. Like, I was like, remember, Sigmund Freud was the most published psychologist in the world, and he was on cocaine. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, she did a little bit of everything, but for sure cocaine.
I don't think that, I don't know what actually, I think Coca-Cola, oh man, I read this really interesting book all about cocaine and Coca-Cola and the brand or whatever. Sorry, I'll keep this really brief, but you can actually chew coca leaves. So in South America, it's a very cultural aspect of those, like that region. People chew coca leaves all the time, and you get a lot of stimulation.
That was my next step. Was
coca leaves?
Coca leaves, yeah. Not that I don't need it. I have so much energy right now, I don't need it.
So it's interesting to me. Okay, I lived in Bolivia for a little while, and I brought coca leaves home.
Of course you did.
Yeah. And actually, I got a little bit of trouble.
Oh, no.
At the airport. But I don't know if things have changed, because this was about 10 years ago. But it was okay for me to bring the coca leaves in. So I don't know what the regulations are. So maybe you could access it. You know,
buy it on Amazon.
I don't know if it's that easy. But yeah, I had the coca leaves in my cabinet for a long time. And actually, I think the like airport security guy who found it, and then I was going to join AmeriCorps and start that like 2 months after or City Year, which is an AmeriCorps subsidiary. I didn't go do AmeriCorps. But he was like, what are you doing now with your life? Because I was coming back from like a little less than a year in Bolivia. And he was like, if you drink this tea and then you take a drug test for AmeriCorps, they're going to know. And he tried to make me all nervous about it, but he let me leave with my tea. So it was not a big deal. Anyways, what I want to get back to is I think it's really interesting that I think you and I have very different approaches in terms of optimization, because right now I've been really obsessed with just getting to a natural state and sleeping good. And I think I'm interested in sort of the things that you're talking about, like nicotine patches, but I think that's like the biggest area in my life that's lacking right now. I still work in restaurants. Hopefully that's ending soon. So working till late hours, you're really stressed out, you get out. There's a lot of drinking, which I'm very moderate about, I would say. But of course that affects your sleep as well. So a segue off of that is, I'm also a twin, and she took a genetic test. I think it was like 23andMe. Have you ever done 23andMe?
My twin did it.
Interesting. We're the non-genetic testers.
I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
So her thing came back, and I thought it had some really interesting information, but it talked about how she metabolizes I forget the exact wording, metabolizes caffeine and coffee quickly, which kind of tracks. I mean, we're different. We're fraternal. I don't know how closely my genetics kind of reflect hers, but
you have the same genetics that a regular sibling would have with another sibling.
Weird stuff. You're identical,
time.
Right? No, you're not. Oh my God, but you could be. It's funny how those dice roll and it works out like that. So I don't think I have this. I definitely do not have the same genetic makeup, but I looked into it, and the enzyme that is responsible for the metabolism of caffeine is coded by the CYP1A2 gene. And there's also another one that was mentioned, which is called the AHR gene. Did you look into this at all? Yeah, I know this is very specific, but because of that story, I was like, I know there's a gene. So some people will deal with the effects of caffeine, or not deal with them, but it'll take up to 10 hours for their body to process caffeine and remove it from the system.
Not me.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way, where I feel like it just comes in and out. And that's why, you were asking, did you stay up till 3 in the morning? I mean, I know it was affecting my sleep quality, but it wasn't really affecting my sleepiness. Like, I could have a cup of coffee and like pass out with it in my hand.
Same.
Maybe because I was exhausted. But
yeah, you're physically exhausted. Actually, I've started taking Cerephos.
Ooh.
And it's lovely.
Okay.
I do not wake up at all anymore. I'm also combining it with Biooptimizer's magnesium.
Is that the brand?
It is the brand,
okay.
And they put all 7 forms of magnesium in it.
Sick.
So I'm just And I have a sleep disorder, but lately I've just been sleeping like the rock. Like a rock, like the rock.
You with those muscles?
Yeah, I'm the rock. You know he sleeps like a baby. Like, not like a baby, he sleeps like a rock, because a baby sleeps for crap. They don't sleep well
2
at
hours,
all. They're waking up every couple hours. I am out from 10 until sometimes like 8 or 9 the next morning, just out.
Is it koalas that only are awake like 2 hours of the day?
Yeah, that's
some
not me,
animal.
unfortunately. But yeah, I have been prioritizing the sleep for sure. But I like to be awake hard, and then I like to sleep hard with no in between. I don't like to be half awake when I'm awake. I like to be present and there, and then I like to be completely left alone while I'm sleeping. I'm one of the, if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm fighting you. I'm asleep. I want to sleep.
I mean, protect your sleep. That's so important. We were both at KetoCon. Did you come to the talk about sleep and circadian rhythm? Ooh, that had me spooked. It's something I've been thinking about beforehand, but especially listening to those things, I was like, there's a lot of things I could do to improve.
She said a lot about night shift working. And I was just looking at the back of your head like, yeah, you're sitting in front of me, and I'm like, this one.
Actually,
yell at her.
Yeah.
Poke her a little bit.
Totally. I think that I want to say like there was a study that came out in 2018 that was talking all about like the risks of night shift work. So I've known about it, but I've also been like, I need to pay for my school, my life. But that's one of those things where I said, I'm trying to get out. I can't wait to have a normal sleep schedule. But
yeah, the way I get around it is just not eating, or, just not paying rent, or just donating plasma, whatever I've got to do.
Grad school life.
Yeah, it's awful. It's so bad.
And also, please memorize these 500 pages and regurgitate for an exam.
Yeah, exactly. So other general health benefits that so this is from Johns Hopkins Medicine. They have a little webpage where they list the health benefits of coffee.
Okay.
Coffee drinkers are less likely to die from coronary heart disease, stroke, diabetes, heart failure, and kidney disease. Coffee drinkers are less likely to get diabetes. Coffee drinkers are less likely to develop Parkinson's, and coffee drinking may also help those with Parkinson's better control the movements, like fine motor control movements. Dark roast coffee decreases breakage in DNA strands, which occur naturally but can lead to cancer or tumors. Your odds of colon cancer goes way down if you drink coffee regularly, decreased risk of Alzheimer's and dementia, and lowered stroke risk.
Add that to the list of reasons.
That's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I didn't realize the Parkinson's and the fine motor control. Did you read about the mechanism it's Johns Hopkins, it's probably not that.
It was very basic website.
So interesting.
Yeah. And then I have some random stuff here.
Let's hear
just
it.
because it's 2:00. We're getting close.
Oh, no.
It's like a 2-hour long.
I have 2 more pages to read off of.
Okay, we'll get through it.
Wait, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Well, I do, but it's not as important as this.
Well, my random facts, it's not as important as...
Well, mine is a lot more about like the decaffeination process and sort of like like how they process different sorts of coffee, which I guess does speak a little bit to the sustainability. But the only other thing that I had that is nutrition and physiology, based on your body, is that the peak concentration of caffeine in your blood is around the 45-minute mark, which I thought was interesting that it has such an onset of, you feel the effects. But
what if you're a rapid metabolizer? Is it half that? Is it 20?
Zoom. Of course, this varies for people, but about 6 hours later after consuming coffee, about half of the content is still present in your system. So for all those people who, drink at 4:00, you're still halfway buzzed by 10:00, or you could be.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. As soon as we leave, I'm going to go get a coffee.
Anyways, so that's the last nutrition related I have. So take it away, baby.
Yeah, it's got a half-life. It's got a long half-life.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be, oh, geez. Now I don't remember the definition for half-life.
The time it takes to break down.
Yeah, but is it half the time? Because it's called a half-life.
I thought it was the full time. No, half-life I think is half the time.
Oh, my God.
Wait. So
Don't listen. We'll do a whole podcast on Half-Life.
we have to clarify.
No,
this
we
and
don't.
omega-3s.
Look it up, Jamie.
Omega-6s.
Yeah. So random facts. These are fun. So a mid-morning coffee break is also called 11Cs.
11Cs?
Yes. So this was actually marketed successfully by an employee of Maxwell House Coffee. Their commercials or their ad campaign said that you deserve a mid-morning coffee break at work. So it became popular in workplaces to have mid-morning coffee, but another word for that was 11Zs, which I absolutely love.
So cute.
Yeah. And then, I wrote again, caffeine content is likely not changed by the roasting process. Like you were saying, they have to actually process it out using water methods, where what I was reading is they kind of steep them in water and then they filter out the particles on the top to actually get the caffeine particle out.
There's actually 2 other ways too.
Okay.
Which I think are interesting.
You really want to get these out. I think you should do it. Yeah, cool. Get it out.
It's time. Okay, so there's a solvent-based method. So that selectively, it targets the caffeine. And common solvents for this are methylene chloride and ethyl acetate. They have direct and indirect. So the direct is where they just wash it in the solvent, whereas the indirect is them mixing it with water. And that one doesn't affect the flavor profile at all. But there's also CO2, which I thought was really interesting. So it's a high-pressure carbon dioxide, which just dissolves the caffeine.
Huh.
I know. I was familiar with the solvent-based one and the Swiss water.
Do they just gas the beans?
I don't know.
It's probably in a chamber and they just gas them. Because they use ethylene on vegetables too to make them ripe.
Mm-hmm. So, and then the Swiss water method, you just soak the beans in hot water to remove the caffeine, which to me sounds like this is neither here nor there, but
more natural.
It sounds like what I want my coffee be.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to, I actually never opt for decaf, but if I were, that would probably be my preferred, just because it seems a little bit less.
You should try decaf, because you get the same health benefits, but it's not going to make you. It's not going to affect your sleep.
That might work with my current health initiatives.
Yeah. You could switch to decaf at noon. You still get to enjoy your full calf in the morning.
When you say that, I just feel warmth in my heart.
I can still drink it. Yeah, it's nice. The other thing about coffee that's nice, I hardly ever drink cold brew, sometimes in the summer, but I'll just, when you wake up, just a nice little warm cup of something that you're then swallowing and you feel it warming you, I think is half of the reason why I like it, because I'm perpetually cold. I'm actually not cold in here. That's nice.
It brings literal warmth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So adding cream to coffee changes the name to white coffee. Did you know this?
Why not brown coffee?
White coffee.
No, I did not know.
I'm picturing a latte, but how much cream are you adding for it to be white coffee? That's just the term. So you hear black coffee. White coffee is the official term for any coffee that's had any amount of cream added to it.
Have you ever heard that in the wild?
No.
At Starbucks?
No. We had flat whites, but that's a completely different thing. That's adding steamed milk to 2 espresso shots.
Okay.
With or without a wonderful pattern on the top. Most of the time it's just a little dot.
What's your favorite pattern?
I don't care about latte art at all.
I think I could only do the heart. And even that was limited.
My favorite is just a little dot. So if you do a flat white properly, the steamed milk kind of pools at the bottom, and then if you pull it up just right, it leaves just a little dollop in the center, just a little white dot.
That's cute.
Yeah. Did you know that caffeine extracted from making decaf is sold to the pharmaceutical industry?
I did know that, actually. Did you have to do a caffeine project in organic, or was it organic chem? It might have just been basic chem. Gen chem. No, but they had us do an experiment with real, isolated caffeine, and we're like, where do they get this from? I think we actually even had to isolate caffeine from like black tea leaves.
Interesting.
They had to really remind people not to eat the caffeine.
No,
or consume it.
My chem classes weren't that fun.
Yeah.
I did projectile vomit when I was dissecting a pig because I'm allergic to formaldehyde. Like the smell, I've passed out in a hair salon once because they cleaned with formaldehyde. And then I absolutely just like projectile vomited and passed out. And then I got like a medical excuse to not dissect the pig, which was nice.
Like, let's be real. Even if you weren't allergic, that smell is so bad.
Yeah, it's just chemicals. I'm sure it's not good for you to be breathing that in.
Yeah. I never really, I had to do some sort of heart dissection from, a lamb heart and, understand it in human terms. And maybe this is just my brain, but I was like, that's not a human heart. It's just not the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not the same.
We looked at a heart. I don't remember. It was probably a pig heart. So get back to countries that consume the most coffee. Guess which countries consume the most coffee.
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
Can you give me a region of the world?
No.
Okay, good. Because
okay. It's the Nordic countries.
Huh.
So the highest consuming nations are Finland, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, and the Netherlands.
I would have never guessed.
No, I wouldn't have either.
Interesting.
There I go again. Yeah, drinking coffee is generally safe within usual levels, depending on how much you've been consuming. It's more likely to improve health outcomes, however, and more likely to improve health outcomes than to cause harm at doses of 3 or 4 cups daily.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine you start getting up into harm when you're doing 8 or 10 cups of coffee a day.
Feel jittery and angsty and yeah.
Oh, here we go. Instant coffee was first developed in 1907, and Nescafe has been the most dominant product since around that time. I like instant coffee.
Oh, yeah?
You don't like it?
So, on the same topic of Bolivia, a lot of them, in the community, at least the community I was in, only drank instant coffee.
Okay.
And which is fine. I just feel like it doesn't have the finish that I want. And I was always a little bit confused by why they use instant coffee because you think they're so close by to great coffee producers, you know. I'm not entirely sure if it's about accessibility or affordability. Obviously, I think instant coffee is more affordable.
Yeah.
It just didn't have the finish that I want, you know.
This was talking about post-war, something about access is why it became popular. But yeah, I'll take instant coffee camping, and I absolutely love it. I almost look forward to the Nescafe.
You think it's the same?
Is it that? How do you mean?
Do you get the same experience?
Oh, I get the same energy and everything. It just tastes a little bit different. But yeah, I love it. It leaves a little residue on the cup.
I know about that.
Mm-hmm. Nescafe, and I buy Nescafe, so I thought that was interesting that they've been the dominant one in the market for that. And I did draw a little, they won't be able to see it on the video, but I drew a little piece of poop when I was...
Wait, you drew that?
Yeah, when I was looking at the colon cancer stuff.
Yeah.
Don't act like it's good. Wait, you drew that? That's amazing. You drew a piece of shit.
Okay, that's a way better poop pile than I could. It honestly looks better than the poop emoji.
Thank you. I'm going to put little angry eyebrows on him.
It has a more realistic color, I think.
Yeah, I didn't intend for that. I looked for a brown, but this app doesn't have the right color brown. You don't want your poop to be...
green.
This is a little green. It's not good. I like a nice dark brown for my poop.
As long as it's not black.
Yeah, which means a cold blood. Yeah, you don't want a cold blood on your stool.
So watch out for that.
Should we wrap it up?
I think that's time.
Do you have anything else?
No. Thank you for having me, Shara. I appreciate our
welcome.
conversation.
What's your last name so people can find you? You don't have to share your last name. You can just share your Instagram profile if that's...
All right, y'all. My name is Maggie. Getting butter all the time. Getting better, but with the good fat. Mm-hmm. So check me out.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, you already know about my profile, but it's Don't Do Dogma. But I don't know. The whole goal of this podcast is just to get people thinking about things for themselves. And we talked a lot about coffee. We didn't talk a lot about the negative effects of coffee, but some of my podcasts, all I do is talk about negatives. So I just wanted one of them to be more, hey, this can potentially be really good for you, especially in regards to like metabolic syndromes and preventing Alzheimer's and things like that. And it's fun. Everyone likes coffee. Mm-hmm. So this is just a positive episode.
Happiness. And kind of, I mean, I guess I brought in the negativity today with adrenal fatigue, but it's one of those things. What is it? What makes a poison is
the dose makes the poison.
The dose makes the poison. I think it's one of those things where it's powerful, but all in moderation, and especially listening to your body and what you need is really important. So there's a lot to be happy about.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Of course. All right, Jamie, cut it. Cut it, Jamie.
Oh, wait, what does Seacrest do? Out. Seacrest, out.
Does he go Seacrest out?
Or cut it out. Is that from... I think that's from... Okay, never mind. I need to stop.
All right, you tried.
I tried. It's from Full House.
Oh, man, I haven't seen Full House
cut
in so long.
it out.